Well, that wasn't what anybody predicted for the second last weekend of the Six Nations. If we look at this in the reverse, there are actually so many things to enjoy about the Six Nations. I have to be honest, in previous years, it was just more of a one sided affair, and I didn't get as much enjoyment out of it as I got this year. It's been such an interesting tournament, and it's been so dynamic all over the place. And there's been drama every single week, and there's been intriguing results coming from all over the place. So let's have a look at what happened, and then we can have a look at what the interesting scenarios are for this coming weekend. Yes, everybody thought Ireland was going to beat Wales, and their 10-point margin is actually a little bit flattering, if you have to be honest. Watching that game, I was so impressed with Wales, how they keep on picking themselves up and how they keep taking small little steps up week after week. They are turning into much more of a team and a unit, and one that fights for each other. And that is the only thing that you can want from your team as a coach. There was the heroic 26 tackles from Peter Steph in the final of the last World Cup, but there were, I think, 4 or 5 Welsh players that got into the 20s. The last count I saw, one of them were on 28, and probably got into the 30s. With a little bit of luck, it could have actually been a vastly different scenario, and it could have been Wales walking away with a shock win over Ireland. But Ireland had enough in the tank. They produced enough quality to actually come out with a win. It was a hard-fought one, much harder than they probably thought it would be, but they got it in the end with that 10-point margin. That set up some interesting scenarios for this weekend, but we'll get to that. I think most Scottish fans were hoping rather than believing that they could pull off a result against France. When Scotland is playing at their best, when they're dynamic as they can be, when they are unpredictable as they can be, they do actually produce amazing rugby, and it's something that is very difficult to defend because it's not as structured as you would think. There's not the same kind of setup play as you would have from many other teams, which makes it difficult to plan your defensive patterns as well around that. But what Scotland produced was a little bit of a superhuman effort. In the last 10 minutes or so, France were running around against a tired Scottish team who knew that they had this one in the bag. So that 40 points that they scored, I'm not going to read too much into that. They were actually limited. It was supposed to be a 50 20 odd final result. It was an absolute thrashing of France. Now, this result was actually the most interesting because what this did is it turned it into a situation where France couldn't get to the Grand Slam. Now we've got 3 teams actually fighting for the overall tournament honors on the final weekend. The one that, however, shocked just about every single person in the rugby world was the win that Italy pulled off against England. I have to say it was one that I thought that was coming. England had not been on a great run, but what really impressed me about the Italian team is they were able to keep their composure against what was on paper a far better English team. If you look at this English team, they've got all the players and they've got all the coaching staff, they've got the contracting happening on their side that should set them up for immense success. There is ever something that they need to work out in terms of consistency, and the last 3 games showed that that is not where it should be at all yet. So there's a lot of work for them to do to figure that out between now and the next World Cup. But there's time. So they will be a far different prospect. And if you're going to jump up and down and ask for the sacking of players and the sacking of coaches and things, it's way premature. The same thing happened with the Springboks leading up to the 2019 World Cup. And we know how that went. So don't write off England just yet. But let's focus on Italy. Italy were absolutely immense in so many facets of the game. They just would not be denied on the day. And it was a wonderful day in Rome for them. And I'm so glad for them that after 33 attempts, this was what they were able to pull off. Now, these results are the ones that will determine what happens on the final weekend and if we're going to have a bit of a shock in who wins the Six Nations overall. You have to give a bit of credit to France, though, for the way in which they were aware enough of the situation that they had and that they really fought for every single last point towards the end of their match. They could have just given up, and you could see that they were defeated. They made sure that points margin doesn't even come into the equation on this final weekend. With those extra 20 odd points that they scored, it was just too big between them and second place Scotland. Now you've got 58 points that Scotland needs to make up, which is not something that will be happening on that final week. But we've got the interesting one where you have both Scotland and France on 16, and just behind them you've got Ireland on 14. And all three of those teams can actually mathematically still make it. What makes me really happy, though, is to see that Italy is sitting in that fourth position, and it's a well-deserved one. They have been playing superb rugby. I think Wales could feel a little hard done by sitting in the last position, and they should take some heart from it. They are constantly improving, and that is without a doubt. So, what we will see going into the final weekend will be exceptionally interesting, and this is how it all can play out. So, the first game of the weekend will be the one that actually sets up what happens in that very final game. You're going to have Ireland and Scotland playing in Ireland. Now, the winner of that one would go to the top of the table for a little while, and that'll then put both of those teams in the very odd position where they're going to be supporting a very strange team in the final match. But we'll have a look at that shortly. The second game will be between Wales and Italy. You almost feel like you want Wales to win one, but based on how Italy has played, you would also not be too unhappy if they actually come away with a good win and they potentially move up to the fourth or to the third spot. I would not hold it against Italy. I would be happy for them, but it's a difficult one because Wales have improved so much, and they're playing at the Principality, so it's going to be a lot harder for Italy to actually just run through the Welsh defence and come up with a big win. So that one, even though it won't change the outcome of the whole tournament, it will be a very interesting one to see. The last game will, however, be the very strange one. You're going to have France playing against England, and depending on who wins that first game, you're going to have either Ireland or Scotland fiercely supporting the English. And that is one of the scenarios that you would probably not have seen previously in history, and you'll probably not see ever again. So what they will be going for is they will be hoping that England pulls off a win, any win. It doesn't matter by how much, just a win. If they beat the French, we would have either Ireland or Scotland lifting the Six Nations trophy, which would be quite the comeback, I must say, from Ireland. And I would say it would be such a wonderful achievement for Scotland after so many years of inconsistent results and ups and downs. But let's have a look at that last game. So what we've got for the last game is we've got a France team who thought they were just going to cruise past Scotland. They got embarrassed at Murrayfield, so they are not going to sit back and just take whatever comes their way for this final game. They know the tournament is on the line, and they are going to be exceptionally clinical in that last game. Over the years, however, England have been a very strange team to play against when it comes to the Six Nations and comes to the tail end of the Six Nations. You've seen it there, and you've seen it in World Cups, and you've seen it on the end of year tours. They always come up with a shock victory against New Zealand or against South Africa or against Ireland at the weirdest times where you don't think they are in the game at all. And they do have all the firepower that you would need to be able to pull off a shock victory now against France. So I must say personally, I'm going to be vouching for England, and this is probably never going to happen again, just because I want to potentially see another team winning rather than France. France can rest easy. They do have a top team. They are amazing in so many aspects of the game, so they don't need to worry about that. They are good. But I think it would be an immense boost and wonderful for World Rugby to actually see, hopefully, Scotland winning, but it would even be good for Ireland to have come full circle after being so inconsistent over the past year.